Do you love it or leave it? Protagonists meet in the first 10%.
Yes, I love it. Like I love it. I hate when it's like slow, that slow of a burn, right? Or when they give us like kind of like a guy who you kind of get invested in, and then he's not the main character
Oh,
hero.
yeah.
Yeah. And then it's
Oh.
like, why? Why are you doing this? Right. So absolutely the first 10%, a meeting quick on, and then separate them fine. But that initial meeting, absolutely, especially with Harlequin, like you only have 70,000 words. So even like my editor, she's like, oh, they've been away from each other too long. Bring them back together quickly. So yeah, definitely meet early, get them back together quickly. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right. Love it or leave it. Dual point of view narration.
Absolutely love it. I love to read it because you get that different sense. I love to write it because I can sometimes get bored. I don't know, maybe other writers like yourself, maybe other but you get bored with your sometimes with writing and the scene. So having that ability to switch up and be in somebody else's head is exciting for me as a writer.
Hmm.
It's hard when you have more than two, for sure, right? But it doesn't really happen in romance, I think.
Right. That's more of a dystopian
The
sort of
YA thing,
situation.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, I love though dual POV because I think we need both sides. I think it's really exciting to see a character through someone else's eyes too, and see their reaction to things. So it just feels like almost with dual POV, it's like you're reading two books
Yeah.
and two in one kind of thing, right? So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. All right. Love it or leave it. Third person, past tense.
For adult historical, that's what we do, right? But I do like it. I wouldn't say I love it, but I like it and I understand that it fits, right, for this particular genre. And is that to say that it has to all the time? No. So I do think but coming from this YA space, I mean, it could work first person. It could work like I think the story demands, right? The story, the characters demand, and the genre demands. So I do like the ability in adult historical romance because, you're giving that historical sense. You're taking people back. You're showing them things, and I think that it's quite useful. It's the medium of choice. So, it happens that you can get a romance with first person. But for me at this time, I think for my historical romance, I think this is what works. So I'm loving it at the moment, is what I would say.
A fair answer. All right. Love it or leave it. The third act, breakup, or dark moment.
I keep coming back to this past in YA, and in YA it's all about the hero's journey, and so you need that dark moment, you need that breakup, and for romance I bring that in too. Like I feel like it needs to be there, so there needs to be some kind of breakup, something pulling them apart, something that is going to make it look like yeah they'll never get together and this is a fail and some sacrifice needs to be made on both their parts for them to get their happily ever after. So absolutely need it, love it, and yeah, I love it. You need
Yeah.
that dark moment. You need that third act breakup. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Love it or leave it. Always end with an epilogue.
No, I would leave it. Like I
Oh,
don't. I would if you asked me prologue, I'd be like, yeah, prologue. I love a good prologue, but I don't necessarily need an epilogue.
that's
I
very interesting.
Yeah. I love the idea of an epilogue when there's balance. Like I have a prologue and an epilogue, maybe. But at the same time, my last one only has a prologue. It doesn't have an epilogue. And I remember thinking in the beginning that I would write one, and then I decided not to. And I was like, because it doesn't work.
Hmm.
Because the prologue is very different. And I find that for but I love prologues, love them.
That is
I
so
always,
interesting.
yeah, I don't always use them. And I know that it's kind of like a faux pas too, to not have to, even like when I was querying, they're like, no, don't include your prologue. I would always like, I love prologues. I find that the prologue just sets things up. And usually in my writing and the things that I have in the drawer, the prologue is a very different voice than actually the character. So it's almost like I don't want to do them too much. Like maybe there's a sense of mystery, maybe there's a sense of like a frame for the story. So I find that I use them as a framing kind of thing and in a voice that is fun for me. So I like writing
Yeah.
them, I like reading them. And then an epilogue, if it's not serving that same function, then I'm like, I don't need it. Right. Epilogue in terms of yes, we see that they're happily ever after. I think in romance, that's the kind of thing that romance readers are looking for. But I feel that if I give them that happy ending, then it's enough. So I don't
Yeah.
necessarily need an epilogue. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour about that. So I'm going to move on, but it's very interesting. All right. Love it or leave it. Share research in author's notes.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And I think that the great thing about historical romance is that you get the romance, you get the history. And so having that note at the end, if I'm finishing a book and I get a historical note, I'm like, oh, wow. Like I didn't know this and I didn't know this idea. And so absolutely, I love that little bonus at the end that's an author's note, why they wrote something, what inspired something. I think as an author, especially and knowing the process, I feel like it's such a treat to get it.
Yeah.
And when I give it, like in the last book that I have, one of the things that I learned was that Verdi's Aida was first performed in Cairo, and people don't know this, and I didn't know that, right?
Yeah.
So they get to attend, and I didn't know that, and I wrote it in the author's note. I'm like, look, this is a really cool thing that I learned, and I hope that, now people will know. So they get that little tidbit like you think something happened here. And I love it when an author's note actually disrupt some kind of commonly held belief about something. So
Yeah. Yeah.
for
That's
sure, I love
awesome.
author's notes. Yeah.
All right. And are there any other romance rules that you break or play with?
I think that like I talked about earlier, this idea of there's conventions, right? But giving it novelty and trying to make it like, yeah, this is an Egyptian princess, or this is an African princess, or this is something that people necessarily won't read a lot of. I think that that is how I would say that I like to break it, like through the characters that are unexpected, through the choices that they'll make. It's not like one or the other, that every reiteration, every story is different. And even when I'm writing, I feel that I don't want to write the same thing, right? I want to write characters who are different. I want to play a
Yeah.
bit in that there's not one way to tell a story, but for this particular character that I'm writing in this particular moment in this particular novel, that it's unique to her or it's unique to him, that they're so fleshed out in my head and hopefully on the page that only this person could only act in this way or could only answer in this way. So people talk about, my first heroine, she's super strong, Egyptian, the other one's kind of a little bit meek in a way. And so it was almost like challenging myself because I've always written these strong characters, right? Female characters. And this one's a little bit, not so much. And
Yeah.
it was kind of a challenge, to be honest with you, just so out of my box. And it just didn't work for a long time. And then it did. For me, at least. I felt like, okay, she's talking to me now. This is what she would do. This is how she would react. This is, she seems meek, but this is what's going on inside. This is where her strength is coming from. Right. So breaking conventions in that sense, that I'm really, really thinking about the uniqueness of a character, even if that character, might be something that you expect from a Muslim woman who wears a veil or a Muslim woman who doesn't wear a veil, right? It's going to disrupt those expectations, I think, and but still be unique to that particular character. I hope it comes
Yeah.
out.
No, I like that. I think what I'm learning from this segment is that you understand the conventions, you'll follow the conventions, but you're also going to disrupt them when
Yeah.
it is convenient.
Yeah. For a story. Yeah. Convenient
Yeah.
and necessary, I think, for a
Yeah.
particular story with particular characters. So, and defining that is going to be not necessarily easy because it's going to shift with the different characters for sure.
Yeah. we can all be on the journey with you, reading your books and seeing what you're going to do next.